Home cooking gives the Canadiens, Mammoth and Ducks 2-1 series leads. Welcome to NHL Wraparound Stanley Cupdate for Saturday, April 25th, 2026. Vic and Neil as we head into the weekend. What a great night of hockey on Friday, and 3 lower seeds now with the upper hand in their respective series after the games on Friday.
Yeah, and surprising, obviously, very even game in the East with Montreal and Tampa. A surprising finish in the Midwest, I guess you'll want to say, in Utah. And then just a plethora of shooting and scoring going on out in Orange County. What a night.
Let's get at it. And the first game of the night was in the Bell Center in Montreal. Neil, you know this as well as anybody. If anybody knows how to make it feel big, it's the Canadiens. Yvon Cornway walking in with the torch to get the crowd going before the start of this one.
They always do it the right way. The Montreal Canadiens have the best ceremonies, the best openings, the best everything. They, Cornway carrying the torch in, the Roadrunner, and the crowd just went bananas.
Ape what?
Oh, I didn't say it.
I thought this game was terrific throughout. The Canadiens and the Lightning are showing to be, even as their point totals indicated during the course of the regular season, both with 106. And in this game, it was the fourth line for the Canadiens, which had been taking a little bit of heat. They wind up getting 6 points in this game. Alex Texier, Zach Bolduc, and Kirby Dach. And when you start to get support scoring like that, it's going to bode very well for you.
Of course it is, yeah. I mean, when you get fourth line chipping in and playing the way they did last night, it takes a lot of pressure off of people like Suzuki and Caulfield and so on to do all the scoring.
This game was 1-1. Headed into the second period, and Alexander Texier, who we just mentioned a moment ago, swapping goals with Braden Point. And what I thought was kind of interesting, that on the second goal that was given up by the Canadiens, this was a goal by Brandon Hagel off a really bad turnover in center ice, that one coming off the stick of Jake Evans. Puck was picked off and Point scores. And Jakub Dobeš then has a little bit of an encounter with Nikita Kucherov. I think Kucherov got a little bit closer to him to join the celebration than I think was necessary. And Dobeš reacted to that because it wasn't a good goal that Dobeš gave up to Point there.
There's no doubt that Kucherov was taunting Dobeš. I think he went right towards him with his arms up in the air, sort of, taunting him, and that's when Dobeš came up with the glove. It was a smart play by Kucherov because you're trying to throw the goalie right off and get under his skin.
Dach got the tying goal for the Canadiens, and I thought this was kind of a soft goal that Vasilevsky gave up. It was a bit of a screen in front of him, but the shot came from along the boards. But I also have to say that Vasilevsky was quite good in this game, particularly in one-on-ones. I mean, there were 3 breakaways that he faced. Cole Caulfield fanned on his, but he also stopped Ivan Demidov and Josh Anderson in the third period coming out of the penalty box.
Huge stops by Vasilevsky. He gave his team every chance to win. I mean, those were 3 breakaways that he came up great on. Yes, you're right. Caulfield did fan on the breakaway, which was shocking, but he did stop Demidov and did stop Anderson, who had a clear breakaway coming out of the penalty box. Shocking that the Tampa Bay Lightning didn't know that he was back there and coming out of the box.
And that was in the third period, and period went scoreless, went to overtime. But before we got there, Neil, there was some rough stuff by the Montreal net, and you usually don't see that late in a game when it's tied and the stakes are so high. And both teams, of course, running the risk of going shorthanded. It didn't wind up happening, but I was surprised to see that much of a to-do that late in regulation.
Yeah, under 4 minutes to go in the game, and they're still punching and rubbing and scraping and clawing. You're taking a chance on taking a penalty at a very bad time.
In the overtime, it was only 2 minutes and 9 seconds in. Lane Hudson with a bomb through his screen. Canadiens up 2-1. What a celebratory night for the fans in the Bell Center. Just a great atmosphere there, and it's what playoff hockey is all about. And it puts the favored Lightning, even though they were even in points, as we said before, it puts them on their heels a bit in that must-win game in Game 4. I mean, it's not that they couldn't come back from 3-1, but they certainly don't want to go back to Tampa having to win 3 in a row.
No, they don't. And Game 4 is always a turning point in the series when it's 2-1, because the series either goes 3-1 and you're on death's door, or it goes 2-2 and the series starts all over again. So it's a huge game, the second game, game number 4 at the Bell Center.
And that game will be played on Sunday, 7 o'clock on ESPN as they get back into the mix coming out of the NFL draft. First ever game for the Utah Mammoth at the Delta Center in terms of playoffs, and they take a 2-1 series lead with a 4-2 win over the Vegas Golden Knights. I thought Vegas got out of the gate very well in this game. They got the first 7 shots on goal in under 4 minutes, but Karavemelka was strong, and he had to be throughout because, as we're going to mention as we go through this game, zone time, shots on goal, shot attempts very heavily favored the Golden Knights in this game, but Vejmelka just outplayed Carter Hart.
Oh, by far. He played excellent. Carter Hart, not so much. When your job is to keep pucks out of the net, you've got to say that Hart just didn't have a good night.
The shots for Vegas, in addition to getting those first 7 shots, they got 11 of the first 13. But Mackenzie Weegar, with kind of an odd goal to get the Mammoth on the board, he takes a shot that goes off Hart's mask, bounces down off of his stick or his pad, and threw him into the net. I don't think we've seen too many goals like that.
Even Hart had no idea how it got in. Hit his mask, the paddle of his stick went between his legs and into the net.
And then Dylan Guenther, your guy, just a hammer on a power play to make it 2-0. And then Lawson Krause, with a redirect of a Nick Schmaltz pass, makes it 3-0. And again, that's not a top-line guy. And you're certainly seeing these support players delivering for the Mammoth.
You are. Again, you're getting what you need in the playoffs, and that is contributions by other than your first line. And that's what Utah was getting here.
Krause made it 4-0 in the second period, and I thought this was a goal that Hart should have had also. Clean shot, no screen, high blocker from about 40 feet. That's 4 goals on the first 8 shots against Hart.
Yeah, and he looked small in the net. He was down on his knees. He got caught twice up real high above the shoulder into the top corner. Gunther's shot, as you said, was like a 90-mile-an-hour blast. And then the Krause shot was also a high shot up into the top corner.
Are you surprised Torts didn't pull hard at that point and go to Aiden Hill?
Yeah, it was sort of surprising that, you're going to have 4 goals go in on 8 shots. That's 50%. I mean, your save percentage is 500. You'd think that they would change goaltenders, but that's either the faith that he has in his guy from the Philadelphia Flyers, Carter Hart, or the lack of faith that he has in Aiden Hill.
Jack Eichel got the Golden Knights on the board with 6:40 left in the second period. On a power play late in the period, Pavel Dorofeev and Rasmus Andersson both hit goalposts, and you have to wonder what this game would have looked like going to the third period had one of those go in and the deficit is 2 as opposed to 3 for Vegas.
You really do. However, this game looked like it was not going to turn for Vegas in this one. It looked like the Mammoth had this one. They had their way with Carter Hart. Even though there was such a discrepancy in the stats, they still got the win.
Third period, totally dominated by Vegas. Nick Dowd did score with 3:08 left. The shots for the game, 32-12, including 9-1 in the third period for Vegas. Attempts, 77-46. And I think that if this game is played 5 times, Vegas probably wins 4 of them with those numbers. And I have to think Torts would probably take this game in terms of the dominance, not only in shots, but the amount of zone time was reflective of how dominant Vegas was for large portions of this game.
Yeah, this game shouldn't really bother the Golden Knights when they're practicing today. They should be saying, look, guys, we played way better than the other team. We played good enough to win this game. Let's go out and get game 4. But again, just like we said with Tampa, if Vegas doesn't get that next game, it's a commanding 3-1 lead going back to Nevada.
I thought a nice touch at the end of this, Lawson Krause, the 2-goal scorer for the Mammoth, was able to get the puck from the official at the end of the game. And no doubt this momentous puck for the first playoff win ever at home for the Utah Mammoth was going to be presented to owner Ryan Smith.
Yeah, there's no doubt that Ryan Smith should get that, and good for him to get the first ever playoff game in the state of Utah, and it's a victory.
Game 4, Monday on ESPN. Time has yet to be determined because that is going to be impacted on what happens in the 4th games being played on Saturday between Carolina and Ottawa and Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. If either of those series end in sweeps, that's going to move that start time somewhere. So we'll keep you posted with that. Last game of the night was played at the Honda Center, and this was the first playoff game in 8 years in that building. And the Ducks take a 2-1 series lead over the Oilers with a 7-4 victory. And the one thing I've got to say here, Neil, right off the bat, the Ducks are beating the Oilers at their own game.
11 goals. That's the total of the Montreal, Tampa, Utah, Vegas games combined were scored in this game, 7-4. And you're right. They're beating Edmonton at their own game. Sloppy, but they're beating them at their own game.
Well, it's anything but boring, but we had talked about this on Friday, that the Ducks may have more breadth in their scoring than the Oilers do. Certainly to this point, those numbers are proving true because in this series, the Ducks have 16 goals from 11 different players. The Oilers, 12 goals from 9 different players. The goaltending has not been great for either club, but play is so wide open. I don't think it's really fair to fault either goaltender, meaning either Connor Ingram on the Oilers or Lucas Dostal on the Ducks, because the play is just so loose all over the ice.
It really is. This is not playoff hockey. This is not what you think of when you think of playoff hockey. Tampa and Montreal going into overtime at 2-2. That's what you think of as playoff hockey. You don't think of a 7-4 game as playoff hockey, but it's an indicator of how wide open these games are.
I thought what was interesting here is so much was made of Connor McDavid's potential injury, or whatever you want to call it, when he clipped skates with Matthias Ekholm in game number 2. And the Ducks are trying to get a piece of McDavid every chance that they get. Tim Washy, who's a relative unknown, particularly outside of the West Coast area, has been assigned to keep an eye on McDavid. He's done a good job here. McDavid did get on the score sheet. That was kind of my bold prediction on Friday, which, I mean, you know, what are we doing here? But for the most part, the Ducks are showing they can go shot to shot with Edmonton here.
Well, the one thing we've said all season is the Ducks know how to score goals. They can score goals. They're good on the power play, and individually they know how to score. They can't keep it out of their own net, has been their problem. Last night, it was just the same that we've seen all season. A great offensive team are the Ducks, and if you let them play that way, you're going to be in trouble.
Vasily Podkolzin opened the scoring at 13-12 of the first period, but 3 minutes and 6 seconds later, it was Mason McTavish tipping it a shot from Drew Hellison. And you remember Hellison is in there because Radko Gudas is injured. And then just a minute and 27 seconds after that, it's Mikael Granlund scoring. So the Oilers get on the board first. They do what they want to do, which is to play with the lead, and they give it back within 4.5 minutes.
That's the problem. The Oilers will allow you to get your opportunities. If you're good like Anaheim and know how to put the puck in the net, you're going to get your opportunities from the Oilers.
And here's the bigger problem for the Oilers on this was a lack of discipline, because that Granlund goal came on a power play, and that was a result of Jacob Trouba laying a clean hit on Jack Roslovic, and then Josh Szymanski, who scored a goal in Game 2, just came up and high-stick Trouba, and that's where the penalty was that created the power play for the Ducks and enabled them to go into the locker room with a 2-1 lead after the first.
And this is the beauty of Jacob Trouba. He does deliver punishing but clean hits, and the other team retaliates. And if you get sucked into that, you're in trouble, because Trouba's hits are usually, they're punishing, but they're clean.
It was a beauty. It was a beauty, and it was a complete lack of discipline. So the Oilers start the second period in comeback mode, but Kasperi Kapanen, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins score $1.42 apart to put Edmonton ahead. And on that Nugent-Hopkins goal, it's McDavid and Evan Bouchard getting their first points of the series.
And so you think at this point, well, here we go, Edmonton's going to take over.
But then that sloppy defense that we have pretty well documented through the first 3 games of this series, Alex Killorn gets the game-tying goal on a rebound where all 5 Oilers are on the other side of the ice.
All clustered together, and Killorn is just there to grab the rebound.
So it's 3-3, and McDavid had a pair of 2-on-1s that would have put the Oilers ahead going into the locker room, but on a pass, wasn't able to get it through. It was a pretty good defensive play that was made, but then when he was on the receiving end of a pass, missed the net. And these are things that just don't happen with him.
No, they don't. And when they are happening with him, it certainly hurts Edmonton's game, because they're so dependent upon Connor McDavid and his finishing touch.
So we go to the third period, tied at 3, and it's Beckett Seneca scoring on a partial 2-on-1 at the 2:53 mark. This coming right after McDavid knocked down Alex Killorn, something that probably should have been called. And then 42 seconds after that, there's an offensive zone giveaway by your buddy Bouchard, and it's Leo Carlson converting from Troy Terry to make it 5-3.
Yeah, and the game is just flipped on its head. And Beckett Seneca, we want to mention, that's his first playoff goal ever. That was a bomb. That was a really good shot. And the Carlson shot was a very good shot as well. And so now all of a sudden you've got a 2-goal lead going the other way.
McDavid gets it to 5-4 with 11:24 left, and he's pushing to try to tie this game. He's coming full speed through center ice, but a great defensive play by Jackson Lacombe to stand him up. And then at the other end of the rink, it's Jeffrey Viel scoring on somewhat of a soft backhander that leaked through Ingram to make it a 6-4 game. And then Lacombe added an empty netter from 190 feet away for a 7-4 final. But now you talk about scoring from support players. Viel not only scoring the insurance marker, but also was doing a fair amount of chirping at the Oilers during the course of the game.
Well, he's their tough guy. He was allowed to come out of the corner and put that backhander in. He sort of walked out from the corner, was able to recover the puck and come out and score that one. He's not known for his goal-scoring prowess, but he is known for his ability to intimidate the other team. And so, you get scoring from guys like that, and it's huge for your team.
Much like the shot totals and the attempt totals were top-heavy for Vegas in their game in Utah, so was the case also for the Ducks, who outshot the Oilers 39-24, out-attempted them 75-49. One of the things when Chris Knobloch took over 2 years ago for the Oilers was their ability to improve their play away from the puck. And that really helped them get to 2 consecutive Stanley Cup finals. We are seeing nothing like that here.
No, we're not seeing that this year. And we haven't been seeing it really during the regular season either. But now you're against a offensive juggernaut like the Ducks, who play very similar to the Oilers, you got to say, except their scoring is spread out amongst more players than it is for the Oilers.
Edmonton tries to draw even Sunday, 9:30 on ESPN. Let's check out the Saturday schedule. All games are on TBS in the U.S. at 3 o'clock. It's Carolina at Ottawa. Hurricanes lead this series 3-0. Jake Sanderson out with a concussion. There will be no disciplinary action, by the way, for Taylor Hall, who made that head hit on Sanderson in game number 3. Artem Zub still not going to be available. Any shot that this series goes to a 5th game?
Oh, I think there's always a shot. They're a proud group, that Ottawa group. They're playing at home. They're not going to want to lose in front of their home fans. It wouldn't surprise me that they eked out a win, but it wouldn't surprise me either that Carolina ended the series 4 straight. I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park for Carolina today, though. I think Ottawa will put up as good a battle as they possibly can.
They battled hard in these first 3 games. They just don't have the depth, and they have not gotten the production from the Kachuks and the Stutzlas that they have needed in this series. It's really only been Drake Batherson to this point.
Yeah, it has been. By the way, the Taylor Hall hit on Sanderson, I know it was Taylor Hall. Yes, it was a hit to the head. I don't think he meant to do that, though. Like, if you notice when he went into the boards and everybody ran after him, he was like, guys, he wasn't ready for that. It was almost like he was saying, I didn't mean to do it, type thing. And Taylor Hall's not that type of player. So it doesn't surprise me that there's no discipline for him. There's no way that you could watch that video and say, oh, that's Taylor Hall trying to take this guy out. I don't think that's true.
I agree. At 5:30, Dallas at Minnesota, and the Stars lead that series 2-1 after winning Game 3 in overtime on a goal by Wyatt Johnston. Matt Zuccarello, game-time decision for the Wild, and Jakob Trenin remains out for Minnesota. So these are guys that they're going to need back in this lineup, because you could see that their loss was profound. I mean, even though that game went into double overtime, those are 2 key components of their team in different roles.
Yeah, they played differently when Trenin and Zuccarello were playing. And I know that Zuccarello in the dressing room and amongst that group is a huge part. I've heard that from insiders that are there. And we'll see if Zuccarello plays. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if he does play today, because they know the importance of him being in the lineup.
Final game of the night will be at 8 o'clock Eastern. Pittsburgh at Philadelphia. The Flyers lead this series 3-0. I didn't put this in the rundown, but do you know the last time the Flyers had a 4-game sweep in the playoffs?
No.
You should.
Okay, it was against us then in 1995.
That's it. I was very surprised to see that. But the Flyers in this series have taken it to the Penguins from the outset. You can see the exuberance with this club. You can see that they're hungry. They would like nothing more than to send their cross-state rivals back home with their tail between their legs.
The waddling Penguins going across the state with their tail between their legs with their tuxedos on. I would be surprised if Pittsburgh wins today. I think that this series is over.
As Howard Cosell used to say, that's why they play the games. Reach us individually at Neil@NHLWraparound.com or Vic@NHLWraparound.com. We're on all podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and YouTube. So please leave a review or subscribe. We still have the polls up to pick winners in these opening round series. You can also find us on X, Instagram, TikTok at radiate.tv and buzzer.com. That's BZZR.com. Our website is NHLWraparound.com. And our latest spring cleaning dropped on Friday. We took a look at the Nashville Predators. We'll have the Winnipeg Jets and San Jose Sharks coming next week. So with that, we'll say goodbye for now. Neil and I will be back on Sunday to recap the Saturday games and set up a 4-game slate for Sunday.